Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Independent Producers Live Showcase, coming to you from Portland Community Media in Portland, Oregon. Have a special 2 hours today. The first hour we interview with Miss Oregon, the second hour with Bruce Broussard. I'm not going to say too much about Miss Oregon because I want her to talk about herself. And official hostess of Oregon, studying film at Portland State University.
Yes.
So go for it.
So I'm Miss Oregon 2015, Allie Wallace, and I'm giving up my crown this year in 2016 in June. So I just have a little bit more time left as Miss Oregon, but it's been a really great ride. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm going to be so sad to see it go soon.
Okay, and that happened June 27th, 2015 at Seaside.
Yes, that's when I was crowned, and then a couple months after that I competed for Miss America and was at the Miss America pageant in New Jersey, and since then I've just been, the hostess of Oregon and serving my reign as Miss Oregon.
Will that happen again this September?
Yes, so this
okay.
next September the new Miss Oregon will go and compete for a chance at the title of Miss America.
But not you.
But not me, no. I'm
okay.
done, unfortunately.
All right. Okay, well then we can probably go straight into promoting Children's Miracle Network Hospital.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. So
that is your main deal, and certainly do want to talk about it.
yes. So Miss America is partnered with Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, and all the contestants who want to compete for Miss Oregon or Miss America or whatever state they're in, they have to raise money for Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. And actually, just yesterday we had National Pancake Day at IHOP, where if you went into IHOP, you got a free short stack of pancakes, and all they asked was you donate money to Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, and their goal this year was $3.5 million nationally, and since 2006 we've raised over $20 million for Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. So it's been very successful.
That's a lot of IHOPs.
Yes, it's a lot of IHOPs.
Okay, well, that's good. That Randall Children's Hospital, it's here. What can you tell me anything about it? And by the way, this is Mike Edel. We've covered Miss Oregon, and I want you to jump in whenever it works out.
Well, thank you, Dick. Randall's Children's Hospital, as part of the Multnomah Hot Rod Council Portland Roadster Show, we do a toy run in December, the second Saturday of December, and we gather up toys to take to Randall's Children's Hospital, and we have a cruise to the hospital itself. And this year we had over 10,000 toys we raised from all the cars and individuals that came and donated toys. And I think they figured it was something like over $80,000 worth of toys that go to the kids at the Randall's Children's Hospital. And what an amazing statistic from Sally Kirchhoff, the director, is that they touch over 60,000 kids a year here in Portland for various reasons. And each one of these kids can get a toy. It just helps them, get through their experience at the hospital. So that's what we do. We try and certainly donate toys every year. And Miss Oregon has been a very strong part of that each year, and helping us with that event.
Okay. That's Randall's. Where is that?
It's right down the street, down the street here off MLK.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Next to Emmanuel.
Oh, next to Emmanuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be right. That'd be right. Okay, and what else can you?
Why don't I just tag in a little bit here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Miss Oregon is one of our, Multnomah Hot Rod Council Portland Roadster Show is a sponsor of the Miss Oregon organization. We have been since 2006. And this will be 10 years at this event that Miss Oregon has been part of the Portland Roadster Show and part of our council.
Okay.
And Allie Wallace will be at the Portland Roadster Show next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, March 18th, 19th, and 20th, along with Miss Washington,
Right.
Lizzie Jackson will be there. And these young ladies will be there to sign autographs and talk to the kids and anybody that wants to, talk about Miss Oregon, Miss Washington. And they will also help us with our awards ceremony on Sunday afternoon. And that's a big thing to do and have them be part of it. We give out over 300 awards on Sunday afternoon, and these young ladies help present the awards, and we take pictures and all that kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun.
I've gone in there and I see all these people sitting there patiently waiting to do with the awards.
Yes.
And I just think it must be really something special for them to win an award for their car.
It is, yes.
So, and it was always interesting to hear that the people that award are judged by out-of-state.
Yeah, yes. The Portland Roadster Show is judged by the International Show Circuit Association judges. We bring them in to judge the show. They're all independent. There's no connection to anybody with the show, so it's a unbiased judging of all the cars that are there. And they're professional judges. They know what they're looking at, and it helps keep everything neutral. So if you win an award, you've won an award. Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, sounds good. And no wonder they're so excited about it. That's what it must be all about.
Oh, yes.
Let's see. One of the other things you deal with is concussion, traumatic. Now, what's the difference? Traumatic brain injury, I looked it up, and as opposed to concussion.
So a concussion, sorry.
No, go ahead.
A concussion is a mild form of a traumatic brain injury, and a traumatic brain injury is basically the disruption of normal function in your brain. So that could be caused by a car accident, maybe you slip and fall, it could be sports related. There's just kind of, the list never ends with ways that someone can sustain a brain injury.
Boxing, football players,
yes,
people like that, really, they do take a beating. I know one thing, I've always kind of wondered how that lawsuit was going to do with the concussion with the football players. That was a big deal, and then all of a sudden it's quiet and you don't hear about it.
And it's something that will never go away. People will never stop sustaining brain injuries. It's just kind of impossible to completely eliminate them altogether. But there are so many ways that we can take precautions to keep us from sustaining brain injuries, or if we do get a brain injury, it's less severe than it could have been, whether it's wearing a seatbelt in the car or practicing safe techniques in football or cheerleading or whatever your sport is. And it's really just about making safer choices.
So these helmets, they're very important.
Yes.
And whether it's football or
riding a bicycle.
That for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're seeing everybody taking more precaution these days about protecting your head for head injuries, and using helmets or whatever they need to do to protect themselves, because you just certainly don't want to get one because it can affect you.
I know that it's talking about it specifically. You have your skull, and then your brain is in a
It's kind of like it's very soft. It's about the consistency of like soft butter. So if you left butter out all day, it's room temperature butter consistency. That's what your brain is. And then it's kind of floating around there in your brain with, some matter and other things. But, your brain just, if it hits any part of your skull, it can cause some serious damage. So it's important that, although we do have a little bit of room in there to keep it from slapping the front or back of your skull, it's still possible. Just the slightest little push or fall or nudge you could sustain a brain injury.
What do you tell people to how to fight it or how to prevent it or things like that?
So kind of some simple things are, when you're riding a bicycle, it's really important to wear a bike helmet. And I think in the state of Oregon, it's either 16 or 17. Once you reach that age, you're not legally required to wear a bicycle helmet, but that doesn't mean at 16 or 17 you become indestructible and your brain is never going to get hurt. So it's still very important to wear a helmet. Also, most people don't know that most helmets are kind of one crash and it's done. So yeah, if you fall off your bike, or if I were to hold a bike helmet and drop it on the ground, that would be enough to need to replace the helmet. So it's really important that you're replacing those sort of things.
I know that, was it Emmanuel? A huge number of kids' helmets that they've supplied, and I've been there where they were giving them away and fitting the kids for them and all that. It's, you could see that it was really, they really went way the extra mile to make sure kids had those helmets.
Yeah, and I mean, they can be expensive, and when you're a little kid, you might fall off your bike a lot, so you might need to replace it more often, which can add up. But I work with OHSU's program Think First Oregon, and we go out and we've provided low-cost bike helmets to the general public, and we fit them to make sure that they're not only getting a nice new helmet, but it's fitting correctly in order to prevent them from sustaining an injury. And they're normally $5 and under. I think there's some programs where if you can't afford one, we can supply you a bike helmet if you qualify for it. But yeah, there's a lot of ways out there, and a lot of people out there that are willing to sponsor helmets in order to keep children and people safe.
I know that I had something happen a while back that said you better always wear a bike helmet. I forget exactly what it was. I hit a bump, serious bump or something like that. But funny thing, when I was little, we didn't have helmets, and I remember skidding on the gravel, so that I ended up going home crying with my knees all scraped up. So that you can still get hurt on a bike, no matter what age you are.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's something else. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your education and your trying for filming?
Yes. So I'm a student at Portland State University, but right now I'm not in school because Miss Oregon is a full-time job. So I'm taking this year off, just to devote as much time as possible to being Miss Oregon. And so I will be returning to Portland State this summer, actually, and getting my Bachelor of Arts in Film. And then after I get my Bachelor of Arts, I'll be traveling to California and going to UCLA for grad school.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Okay. I think that's... have you been involved in filming? Do you know how easy it is to get involved in it right here, if you have the time and effort, or like when your reign is over? It's so easy to come here and get involved. In this stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I was mostly involved out in Tuolin, and this guy said, right here, Portland Community Media, this is the place to come.
And so, Portland's really a growing industry for filmmaking. We have so many films and companies coming up here to film instead of Los Angeles because it's a lot more affordable. We have a lot more kind of diversity in our landscape. You know, we have the desert, we have the beach, and we have a lot of greenery where, you know, other states you don't find that as often. So we're just a really great place to be.
You say they're coming up here more as opposed to trying to get set up in Los Angeles?
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper. I think you know, don't quote me on this, but Oregon has made it so companies that come up here and film and hire Portland or Oregon staff get certain tax breaks, so it makes it a lot less expensive to create a film.
Okay. I knew it was happening, but not maybe to the extent that you're kind of letting on here. That's very interesting.
We have several television shows being filmed here. Grimm, obviously, Portlandia, Significant Mother, which I was a intern on the set of this last summer, and actually was on briefly at a cameo in one of the episodes. So there's just a lot up here to do when it comes to film. in Portland.
I guess if they're doing film like that and you just hang around,
Yeah.
you might be able to get on the show.
Yeah, I know. I was just walking on set carrying some orange cones, and someone yelled at me to
Hey,
be
you.
in this scene. Yeah, it worked out. It was really fun.
Well.
My 15 minutes of fame.
There you go.
Okay. Well, it's lasted longer than that, though, hasn't it?
Almost a year.
Okay, right. So how many more places do you have to go? Do you go to schools and all that?
So
That's to me, you're getting up repeatedly in front of school classes. It just blows me away. I mean, it is that I couldn't do it, but the difference is having something to talk about. When you have a whole
Right.
subject,
yes.
if you were going to get up there and say, "Oh, gee, I can't think of anything to say," then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But if you've got a whole subject to go on, wow, I can understand that.
Yeah, and for me, it's important. You know, I could stop schooling at my Bachelor of Arts, but I'm not so interested as in a certificate as I am the education, and getting, you know, as far as I can in the education. I think it'll give me more peace of mind. It'll, I think, sharpen my skills a lot better when it comes to film. So for me, it's more than the degree. It's more about the education aspect. So I don't care how it looks on a resume as much as I do when it shows up on the screen.
Okay. The fact that you've been in something, that probably got you going a little bit, I'm willing to bet.
Yeah, I've gotten. I mean, I haven't had any speaking roles yet, but I was I was an extra a couple times in Portlandia. But I think most of Portland has been, and I've done a few little things. I got to travel to Japan, and we did some things over there. And that was all as Miss Oregon. So it's been really incredible.
Well, you know, I compare it with this thing that you, where that somebody let a young kid sit in the front seat of the car.
Right.
And that just took off their interest in cars and roadsters or whatever.
That was actually a story from Jay Leno.
Yeah.
When we were in California visiting down there, or actually when he was up here at the Portland Art Museum doing a visit for the Cars in the Park event they had. He did an hour per show that we were able to get to. And one of his stories he had in there is when he was 9 years old, he was walking down the street kicking a can, and there was this nice old classic car sitting in this driveway, and he kind of looked at it, and there was an old guy that owned the car there, and the guy asked him if he wanted to come and sit in the car, you know. And he said that's what started his interest in cars, and today he's a phenomenal car guy. So just one little event, and he says to all the car people out there, he says, if a kid wants to sit in your car and just get the feel of a car, that experience will probably go with them a lifetime in terms of, the love of the car.
That's what I hope happens at the show. Yeah.
But you can't sit in cars at the Roadster Show.
Oh, that's right. There's certain limitations.
We don't do that there. But if at a cruise in or some event, and a kid wants to look at your car, sit in it, that's a good thing.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about the Miss America organization? Is that more involved than we might think, or?
Yes, so the Miss America organization is the largest scholarship provider for women in the entire world. So not just in the U.S., we give out more scholarships than any other organization in the whole world. And it's really an incredible organization because it pays for most girls' education. I know I'll be graduating from Portland State debt-free because of this organization. And I think a lot of people kind of get confused because there's Miss USA, which is a for-profit organization, so they don't reward as much when it comes to scholarship, and Miss America is a non-for-profit. So there's a big difference that way. And the Miss America organization is really great because it not only rewards girls in scholarship dollars, but it rewards girls for being active in their community, being not only intelligent and giving, but they've crafted a talent in their spare time, which can be really hard to balance school, work, practicing a talent. My talent at Miss America was dance. I've grown up being a dancer and also volunteering on top of that. So it really just, it's really a reward system for girls who are very ambitious and driven.
Dancing? Do you do what?
Yes, so I grew up as a dancer.
Oh.
My mom was a dancer and she's a dance teacher, and my sister was a dancer. My dad actually briefly danced when he was a little bit younger. So we're really a family of performers, and so gosh, I don't even know how many years I've been dancing for. Over
really?
15 years.
I mean, by yourself on stage? Or what? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so at Miss America, your talent is completely by yourself. So you're on a huge stage in front of tons of people, performing, and it's really just incredible because dancing has been a big part of my whole life. So to do something that I'm so passionate about in front of such a huge crowd is really an incredible experience.
Sounds like film and dancing are
Yeah.
two big things.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I think just growing up in the arts and performance kind of lifestyle, I've just been really drawn to film and anything that involves being charismatic or art.
Yeah, right. Well, okay. Do you have a teacher for the or it's your mother that probably taught you or what?
My mother taught me a little bit growing up, but as I got older, I worked with other choreographers, and my choreographer for Miss America and Miss Oregon and Miss Portland, which was my local title going to Miss Oregon, was my dance teacher since I was, like 12 years old. Her name's Claire Dye, and she owns Portland Dance Center, and she's a phenomenal choreographer, phenomenal dancer, and just really shapes young children's ability to dance.
Okay. Well, that's there's never an end to all the different things that we come in to the open here with. That's right. Okay, so that was. Is there anything else you wanted to say about the Miss America organization?
Yes, it's an organization that gives so much. So they still need a lot of support. So we're so lucky to have the Roadsters be able to be a sponsor of the Miss Oregon program and give girls an opportunity, or women, I should say, an opportunity to better themselves in their career or in school. And so anyone out there that is interested in supporting a great program that empowers young women, please visit the MissOregon.org website and check that out, because we need and we love any support we can get.
Oh yes, I'm sure.
Now, you want to talk about how each state competes for Miss America?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Each state has their own representative.
So yes, every state, including DC and Puerto Rico, competes for Miss America, and it's kind of funny because it's 52 young women, and somehow you get really close to every single girl, which it seems a little bit crazy to think about because it's 52 girls, but it's crazy how close you get with each and every one of them, and they're all incredible, they're ambitious, they're intelligent, and they're talented young women who,
That's right.
Yeah, it's just really a fantastic thing to be in a group of young women that share the same common interests as you and are just as driven as you are, and really care about their community and their education. So, and the Miss America organization, when you go and compete at Miss America, you're there for 2 weeks, which ends up being a long time. By the end, you're exhausted and you're sad to leave, but you're ready to sleep in your own bed at night. And it's just filled with appearances and rehearsals, and they actually, kind of funny because you are on the go so much, they have a they call it Sleepy Hollow, which is a little room filled with cots and blankets and things that girls take kind of turns going and taking naps there. But it's so much fun. I really enjoyed my Miss America experience.
One of the last ladies, Miss Oregon, we had talked about how, I said, well, where do you stay when you come here? She said, I stay with a sister.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was neat.
Yeah, the Miss Oregon organization and most other states' organizations are very tight when it comes to their successors and their predecessors. So my predecessor, Becca Anderson, her and I are very close, and lots of my other Miss Oregon sisters, we're all really close and want to help each other out. And if anyone needs anything, we get together, and it's a really tight-knit group of
yeah.
women.
What are some of the things that you've done since being crowned Miss Oregon as far as appearances in Oregon?
Yes, so in relation to my platform, I was invited to travel to Arizona and be the keynote speaker at the Brain Injury Alliance. They had a summit up there, and I spoke about my personal experience with a traumatic brain injury, my recovery process, life after my injury, and why it's so important to advocate for this very overshadowed and overlooked issue.
Now, you've had at least one brain injury? Or?
I've had two, actually. So right before competing for Miss Oregon, it was about 2 weeks after I was crowned Miss Portland, I got a very minor concussion, which was not too fun when you're trying to get ready to compete for Miss Oregon, but when I was a freshman in high school, I had a very severe traumatic brain injury, and I couldn't dance, I couldn't exercise, I couldn't do a lot of things I was used to doing for over a year, and it was a long, long recovery process, and I still deal with a lot of the effects of the brain injury to this day, and it's a really confusing and not.
In other words, you're confused when you have this brain injury. Is
Yeah.
that what you mean?
Well, you do suffer from some confusion, but it's also confusing because you look fine and you know you're the same person, but there's a lot of things about you that are changed and are different since suffering your injury. And
Okay.
when you're dealing with it and when you don't know too much about traumatic brain injuries and what you're going through, it can be really confusing and hard to understand that what you're suffering from and what you're feeling is very common and is very normal, but it can be kind of a struggle and kind of difficult at times, and so you're kind of confused on what you're going through, and most people look at you and they think you're fine, but there's a lot of things internally going on that you can't communicate with people, and you don't even understand what's going on yourself.
Yeah, that's right. I don't suppose you got them playing volleyball.
No, I was a competitive cheerleader in high school, and I sustained my injury. So yes, so high school sports are incredibly competitive today, and
Oh, yes.
I a lot of that is why I sustained my injury, because I was on the varsity cheer team as a freshman in high school, which is really difficult to do at my high school, and I wanted to prove that I was strong enough to remain on the varsity team and compete. So I was practicing a tumbling skill, which I was not ready to do in an environment that was not safe to practice in, and not knowing how to do the skill. And in a result, I left myself with a traumatic brain injury and missing out on over a year of dance and cheerleading. And so there's a lot of regret there, but in a bigger way, I'm almost thankful for that experience, because now I can talk about it and educate others, because it is such an overlooked issue and it's so important to talk about. So in that way, it was kind of a blessing in disguise.
Right. Just a comment about competitiveness. I think all the newspapers and everything they keep, a wrestler stubs his toe and it's in the paper. All this really, Central Catholic does such and such, and it's in the paper, and it didn't used to be that much.
No.
Yeah.
It had big stuff, and so that's probably contributing to making it
Yeah,
more competitive, just what you're talking about.
And that's why it's so important for young athletes to understand what a traumatic brain injury is,
Yeah.
to understand the signs and symptoms, because a lot of people suffer from
Right.
brain injuries and have no idea they have one. So when you're dealing with so much competition in high school sports, and you've got the rub some dirt in it mentality, or you are under a lot of stress and pressure because your whole team depends on you, or it's a brain injury, so it's not something people can physically see, and they think that you look all right and they think that you're fine, so they don't understand why you're not performing as well as you should, or why you aren't performing. So it's really important for the person playing the sport that's suffering a brain injury to understand what they have, and also their fellow players or teammates or classmates and family and coaches to understand the severity of a brain injury.
It takes them down. It takes you down a level. It's kind of what you're saying.
Yes.
And aren't the coaches and such supposed to be right there and have some knowledge about this stuff?
Yeah, so coaches are in the state of Oregon required to pass traumatic brain injury and concussion safety courses. But the thing is, when the sports are so competitive and they're under so much pressure,
Yeah.
a lot of students lie about their symptoms or how they're feeling. And that's because they don't know how the residual effects of brushing off a brain injury can lead to something that can just be so detrimental to the rest of your life or change your life completely. That's why it's so important to really understand that you need to take care of yourself, because if you don't, the effects can be so much more life-threatening.
What's the best way to rest more? What's
Yeah, so
stay away from that sport a little bit, or
it's kind of hard because there's some new medicine that's coming out that that is supposed to help heal brain injuries, like oxygen therapy. But the only way to kind of make sure your brain gets better is, maybe you need to take some time off of your sport, maybe not go to school, or have shorter classes, or get a little bit of extra help in school. Definitely no TV, loud music, bright flashing lights, so no school dances, unfortunately. And it can have a lot of social impact on a student who has a brain injury. I know for me, I experienced some bullying, and I couldn't go do some of the things I would have regularly done or participated in the things normal high school students do. So, it can definitely impact you socially.
you just can't do everything, can
Yeah.
you?
Yeah,
That's
you
kind
just
of what you're
can't.
saying. You
No.
just have to lay back sometimes, just kind of
Yes.
take it easy. And
Yes, and that's the quickest way to heal, because if you're, you think you might have a brain injury, but you decide to go for a run or lift some weights or go to a concert, it can actually make things worse. Or even worse than that, put you at risk for sustaining another brain injury, which would be second impact syndrome. And the repercussions of that would be possibly never gaining your normal brain function ever again, or even getting close to what your normal brain function would be.
is this, do doctors, do they have the means to kind of, I don't know, grasp your head, or I don't know, just
So when I sustained my brain injury, so that was, over 6 years ago, I was lucky that I had a doctor who was very well informed on traumatic brain injuries, because at the time a lot of doctors weren't, and a lot of people weren't. So I went and visited my doctor. She knew exactly what was going on. Unfortunately, I went to a follow-up appointment, and my normal doctor wasn't there, and I had a doctor who didn't know anything about brain injuries.
okay.
And so it's kind of a scary fact to know that your doctor could potentially not have a lot of information on brain injuries. So I think it's important to have a doctor that, or at least go to a doctor that is very well informed and very well educated on how serious they are. Because if you visit a doctor who tells you you're fine and you're really not, the impacts of that can be really damaging.
a sports physician, sports doctor, they advertise, some of those people advertise as that. So
Yes.
maybe hopefully they would know about that kind of thing.
And I think that's also why it's important for everybody to have a general knowledge on brain injuries, because if you
Yeah.
understand the symptoms and think you're experiencing them and your doctor tells you you're fine, you can always get a second opinion. And I really encourage a second opinion, or you can go get a brain scan, or talk to a neurologist, or do some more research.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Do you have any more comments about, I didn't want to miss kind of talking a little bit more about the show again, if we
can, the Portland Roadster Show is next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, March 18th, 19th, and 20th. This is our 60th anniversary show, so it's a very special show this year. We did a very special show for the 50th anniversary, which is now 10 years ago, which is hard to believe. But this show is going to be over the top from all indications. I think the attendance will be over the top. People are anxious to come and see some of the most beautiful cars in the world. We're going to have, I believe, over 500 cars. And we have some what you call grade 8 cars coming, and Riddler cars coming, who have won at the Detroit Autorama. These are some of the top awards for cars in the country. And we've got some of those cars coming to our show. We have an amazing amount of full 20 by 20 displays this year at the show. And a lot of these cars have never been seen before. Brand new cars, new builds. So it just, for the car world people, and it just makes it very entertaining, and just come and see something brand new. And again, we've also, well, this year is kind of special. We brought back Chip Foose, who's a world-class car designer, well-known. He has the TV program Overhauling. And he will be at the show all 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And he was at our show about 8 years ago.
Okay.
And it's taken us that long to get him back because of his popularity. And then we have Dave Kindig, who will be at the show. He's a recent car designer in terms of years, but he has a TV show called Bitchin' Rides, and it's and that stands for really nice rides. But it's gotten very popular, and especially with the younger generation. His notoriety has certainly moved up. And we've also got John D'Ostino, who's also a car builder and designer.
Yeah.
He travels around the world, and he's one of our great ambassadors of the Portland Roadster Show. And Gene Winfield will be here this year. He is, I believe, 89 years old.
Wow.
He is an old-time car designer, still going strong. He loves to work with the cars and build. And we're fortunate to have him come back and see us this year. For the last several years, we've had George Barris at our show, and he's well known for designing movie cars like the Batmobile and the Munster Coach and a lot of these cars. But George passed away in November. So we were very fortunate to bring him back to our show for several years, and so everybody could talk to him, get his autograph, and those kind of things. And we like to do that. We want to remember the old car designers because they've got us to this point in time. We also have this year, we're bringing in Johnny Limbo and the Lugnuts for Saturday night. They're going to do a full dress show for everybody at the Portland Expo Center. And then they are really a class top band in Portland. They've been around for a long time, and they can really play the oldies music. So the car guys are going to be having a good time Saturday night. And along with that, some other special things we do at the show this year. On Friday afternoon, we allow about 350 high school kids to come into the show. They come in for free, and we provide a lunch for them. And then some of the car celebrities and car people will do presentations to them on how to show a car and all those kind of things that they might have questions about. So we want to get the high school kids and the new generation interested in cars and have a good time there. So we do that too. And then we also do two other things that we've started in recent years. One is we do a pedal car competition. And that is where we give small pedal cars to different high schools, and they form a team, they customize the cars, paint them, and do whatever they want, and they bring them back to the show, but they have to pedal. They still got to pedal.
Okay.
And they're put on display. And I think this year we have 16 or 18 of those pedal cars coming back from high schools that have built them. And then before the awards on Sunday, we auction them off. And then that money gets distributed up between the schools evenly that have competed in that contest with the pedal cars. And we also have a high school challenge. This year we have 30 high schools competing. Each one, a student brings a car into the show to show and compete for awards and prizes that we have specifically for the high schools. And that's kind of a unique thing, where you see kids that are building their own cars in shop classes at high schools, and they bring them in and display them at the show and talk about them and so forth. And then one other kind of a special thing we do on Saturday, we have these small wagons, like the little red wagons.
Oh, yeah.
We have a bunch of those, and those are given out to painters and some of the high schools. They paint up these wagons real spectacular. They bring them back to us, and we have our pinstripers pinstripe them at the show, and they put a kid's name on them. And what we do on Saturday, we have about 24 kids that'll come in from the Cancer Society, and they get to pick out their own wagon and take it home. So it's kind of a special thing, just to do something special for the kids that are, suffering and fighting that terrible disease. And so these are other things that are going on at the show all the time. And plus we have vendors. We have a tremendous amount of vendors that will be at the show with all various products related to automotive and food. There's something there for everybody that wants to come to the show. It's a family show event all the way through. So it's going to be a fun show this year, very special. And like I said, it'll be over the top compared to other years. And Miss Oregon will be there signing autographs, and Miss Washington will be there signing autographs, as well as the celebrities also will be available for folks to come in and sign autographs.
I would think that I'd be very conscious of keeping young people interested in what you're doing.
Yep.
And I think some kids say, well, that Model T or Model A, I don't want to see any more of that. I'm trying to think how you can keep their interest up, because maybe you have to keep doing new things or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I think one of the ways to do it is young kids, if they get interested in cars, is to consider, joining a car club.
Okay.
Although they have there's car clubs for Datsuns and Nissans and a lot of the foreign cars that the kids like. There are car clubs associated with all those kind of builds. There's a lot of the older car clubs also that have folks in there that and kids that have some of the newer type cars in there. So getting involved, you learn about the car, you talk to the people who've got experience working on the cars and that kind of thing, and that goes a long way in learning how to show a car or whatever you might want to do with it, is to get involved a little bit with a car club. Now, our Multnomah Hot Rod Council is made up of 19 car clubs locally, and that is the nucleus of the council and the Roadster Show. So it's getting involved, and you meet a lot of great people and get a lot of good experiences and just have a lot of good time.
And they enjoy it so much.
Yes.
These guys that have had, hot rods when they were,
Oh, yes.
if you can call them that.
I'm really excited to go because I've never been to the show, so this will be my first time, and I've heard just really great things. And as Miss Oregon, one of my jobs is I travel to a lot of the shows, the Roadster shows, and I've gotten to see some really incredible cars, really fancy to really quirky. It's just really fun.
Is this your first car show?
This is my first Portland car show, but I've gotten to go to, we've gone to the roadster shows that are all over Oregon. I was in one, or I went to one that was in Vernonia and
okay.
Portland, and a lot of different places.
You came to the beaches one too, didn't you?
The beaches one, yeah.
Beaches,
Yeah,
the beaches PIR Cruise In, which goes on every summer, starting first Wednesday of June, all the way through the last Wednesday of September. There's a cruise in every Wednesday out at Portland International Raceway. And they'll bring in 1,000, 1,500 cars every Wednesday night. And the money that for entry into that, which is only $5, goes to charity. And this has been, this is an event that's been going on for 20 years. It was started by the Beaches restaurant owner Mark Mathias. And as of this last ending of this last summer, they have now raised $2 million for charities. And at one of the events during the summer, they'll write checks to a distributed number of charities at one of the events, which is phenomenal. It's like $250,000 given out every summer for various charities. So it's just an amazing, how many people are out there who've got cars in their garage, and on a Wednesday night they bring them on out and just have a good time. And there's also one other cruise in going on. I think it's kind of special, and that's out at Billy Bob's Restaurant in Gresham. And this is put on by the Farrell Street Rodders. And the purpose of this cruise in is to raise money for the Missing in America project.
Oh, that's right.
The Farrells support veterans, and there's a phenomena going on. And when you say Missing in America, what this means is there are thousands of veterans who have passed away. Their remains have never been buried properly. They're sitting in funeral homes, all kinds of locations, and a number of car organizations have taken it on themselves to raise money to have a proper funeral for these veterans that have given their life and their support to this country. And that is one of their missions, and they've donate probably $10,000 a year from that cruise, and it's a small one. They have about 70, 80 cars that come every Wednesday night, all summer long, and pay an entry fee, but that money goes to help veterans, and particularly veterans, burying veterans properly that have not been buried. So, and that phenomenon, it goes across the United States. Every state has that same issue. There's something like 6,000 or 7,000 in this state alone that have never been buried. It's really a criminal crime that this is allowed to go on like this. Veterans should have the right to be buried, and if they don't have the money, our government or state or somebody should be stepping up for what they've done for this country.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
an extremely selfless thing to do, to serve, to protect your country. So the fact that they're not being properly buried, not being properly honored is almost I hate to say it, but it's almost a disgrace, because they've
my
been
feeling of it.
So yeah, I mean, really, we need to honor and respect those who give their lives for us.
So anytime anybody can support one of the organizations that do help the Missing in America project, you need to do that. And there'll be representatives at our Portland Roadster Show. They'll have a booth there. Come and see them. You can donate some money if you like to help bury some of the veterans in this state. It's an ongoing task, and it's not going to end. Everybody's going to keep promoting and doing this, because it's a thing to do. It's the right thing to do.
Yes.
And we got to do it.
We can do a show on it sometime. I'll have to talk with you about
Absolutely. They'd be
And,
happy to do that.
It's a missing thing, but you're right. You can't not do enough
No.
for that. And
Also at our Roadster Show, we have other charity organizations will be there too. That'll come, and you can come and see them at the Portland Roadster Show.
but that one will be there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It'll be at the Farrell Street Rodders booth. We also bring in Dornbeckers. They auction off a car every year, and that money gets donated to Dornbeckers to help kids. And I think they've raised over $3.5 million.
Oh, wow.
You got a little organization of people that go to different events. They take the car, sell tickets, and then at the end of the time period. They draw and somebody wins the car, but all that money collected goes to help the kids at Dornbecker. And there are people dedicated to do that, just like there's people dedicated to help the Missing in America Project. So there's a lot of organizations out there that do need help. They'll be at our show next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Come out and see them.
Yeah.
Have a great time.
Our Bob Smith, a member of our Chanticleer's Toastmasters, is
Yes.
on the board at Dornbecker.
Yes, he is. And he's an active participant.
Oh, okay.
He'll be actually out at our show selling tickets to maybe win the car, but that money does go to the Dornbecker kids.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Dornbecker is actually is one of our Children's Miracle Network hospitals. So
Okay.
all the money that we raised at National Pancake Day goes locally, so it's not
Right.
going to a big
Right.
organization where it's being distributed amongst executives. It's really going to our local hospital, and so anytime you make a donation to Children's Miracle Network, it does go directly to your local hospital, and it's really a fantastic hospital. I think everybody's known somebody who's had a child at Dornbecker's, and they don't turn anyone away, and they have people flying in from Canada and out of state just to get the best medical treatment.
Along with that, at last year's Roadster Show, there was a little kid there. He's kind of bald. I think he was fighting maybe cancer, but his parents had to sell whatever they had. They brought him out here to Dornbecker's, and all they had was a pickup and a camper, and they were parked in their parking lot, and that's to bring the boy out here to get treatment. And they had to stay in there, and they had no money, but they had to do what they had to do. And I know some of the people helped them out from the show.
Yeah.
And
That goes on all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have one of the top children's hospitals in the United States, and they don't turn anybody away. They do whatever they can to make it work, to make sure a family has a place to stay if they've had to travel far or they need to travel to Dornbecker's. They find a way to fund their trip, and it's really an incredible hospital.
That's kind of why all the car people that come to the Roadster Show will support veterans till the end of the earth, because we can't play cars, we can't put on these kind of events without our freedom. And freedom today is getting so critical. I don't want to get political, but people need to wake up in this country and see what's going on, because we can't lose our freedom. If we do, we won't be playing cars or doing these fun things that we do.
That's right.
And we do that to raise money to help all these events and people that
Yes.
need help.
And I think people don't realize that, or I think they take our freedom for granted because,
Absolutely.
there's so many, and freedom isn't free, unfortunately. And that's where our veterans come in and they protect our freedom. And so we really owe them, and we got to pay them back somehow, because freedom really isn't free.
Absolutely. If I'm going to an event, I see a couple of military people there, I'll buy their event, or I'll buy them into an event. They don't pay. And I know there's other organizations that do that, or restaurants that do that. If they come in, you don't pay for anything. And people need to do more of that.
I think so
Because
too.
what a lot of folks don't realize, and we're associated with the Oregon Air National Guard at Portland International, all the military folks out there don't have a lot of money. And we put on car shows for a number of years out there, and we raised money to help the family support group, because families, when somebody's on deployment, their family barely has enough, or even has enough money to pay a mortgage.
That's right.
It's phenomenal. They don't make much money
No.
when you're in the military, and especially if you have a family and so forth, they struggle. And anybody out there that you see a person in a military uniform, help them out wherever you
Yes.
can.
And
you know.
and the people that go into the military, they're not in it for the money, and
No.
they're in it because they're so passionate
That's
about
right.
our country, and realize that we need to protect our freedom. And so they're just I think anybody who joins the military, it's such a selfless act, because you leave behind your family, your friends, and it's a hard job, but
Okay.
you gotta
It
have
is.
passion for it.
I want to tie everything up.
Okay.
Okay, your Portland Roadster Show is the weekend after this one.
That is correct. Next
And,
Friday, March 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Right.
And Friday it's from 12 to 9. Saturday it's from 10 to 9. And Sunday from 10 to 5.
Okay.
All 3 days. Come on out. Parking's available. And it's an easy in and out. There's a light rail is out there to the
That's
Portland
right.
Expo
Light
Center.
rail.
So it's a very friendly environment to go out to and see a show.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to come to this one. It's our 60th anniversary. You want to come and meet Allie Wallace, Miss Oregon,
Right.
phenomenal young lady, and also Lizzie Jackson, Miss Washington will be there. And come on out and see our celebrities, and mainly come out and see the cars. They're the stars of the event.
Yes.
Okay, and then to partially reintroduce Miss Oregon, official hostess of Oregon, studying film so that maybe she can get involved in film
Yeah.
when she's out of school. She was crowned Miss Oregon June 27th last year, Seaside, making appearances promoting Miss America organization, preparing for competing at Miss America pageant in Atlantic City. You said that's already been done,
Yeah.
but still it's part of what you do.
Yep. Part of the job.
Okay, to spend the rest of the year promoting Children's Miracle Network hospitals. Miracle must be referring to what some of the hospitals do and
Yes.
the doctors.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And the network refers to them if they can help each other.
Yes. Oh,
that
definitely.
They'll do that. Okay. Going to continue your education. That's and her personal platform. I didn't write concussion, but a traumatic brain injury.
Yes.
The education and awareness of that
Yes.
and of concussion.
So, concussion is a traumatic brain injury, actually.
Yeah.
So, under the same umbrella, very important.
Of course, you can look it up, but you still need to be
still-
aware of it and how it can
Yes.
affect people that, kids that play,
Right.
Exactly.
young people that are, frankly, sometimes you just have to say they're fragile. And you just, kids going out and playing tough football and all that, I don't
Yeah.
know,
It's sad to say that it's a little bit inevitable, but there are so many things that we can do, so many precautions that we can take to reduce those risks and keep our players safe, keep our friends safe, family safe. Even military members, they're one of the largest groups of people who suffer from traumatic brain injuries. So anything we can do to reduce those numbers, is just one step to
Okay.
one step forward.
I think they've improved the equipment nowadays so much compared to the days of old. You're very much more protected.
Yes,
Definitely.
Okay, I want to thank my guest, Mike Edel, for coming back on, talking about the Portland Roadster Show, and Allie Wallace, Miss Oregon. And I want to thank our crew for
Right.
making this show possible. It's something we do not forget here. And we just really appreciate that. So if we can go to the playback times, then we'll switch over here pretty soon. There we go. Thank you. And we'll be back with the next hour.
Welcome again to this segment of the Independent Producers Association. I'm Bruce Broussard, and in fact, as far as I'm concerned, we've got 3 hosts here. We got 4 hosts here tonight. We've got folks that are going to be giving you some, get you sort of a little insight about the upcoming election. We've got the upcoming election, the mayoral election, and the city council election here in Portland. That's basically in the primary. We got some 16 candidates that's going to be running for mayor. 16 candidates going to be running for mayor. And there are a number of candidates going to be running for 2 city council seats. And the bottom line is that, so it's very, very important that many of those individuals who are going to be running for mayor really don't have some of the issues that should be, in fact, discussed. Well, we've got some serious problems here in our city. We've seen other situations in other parts of the country, and we're the city of roses. And in many ways, we are the welcoming mat, if you will, for the state of Oregon. It's a very, very important piece. People come here first and whatever. And so it's going to be very important that the folks who are running, I mean, they qualify, because all they had to do is, for a mayorship for that matter, all you had to do is come up with your name, that you are a citizen of Portland, and you have $50. I have some issues about that, but that's the way it is right now. Can't talk about this at that point in time, but I think that's an issue that, in all due respect, I happen to be a candidate that's running for mayor at the same time, and naturally one of the things I was concerned about was that form, you know, that form, and I think that we may have to look at that, because we really need to get folks who are seriously understand some of the issues that we have here, and so in the past it's been kind of like, you got 16 candidates. They will kind of pick the top 2, people with money or this, that, and the other. But as far as I'm concerned, if you got 16 candidates, it should all be treated equally. Yeah. Now, if we change it, that's different. But right now, we treat everybody. So the part of what we're going to be playing tonight, we're going to talk about police, law enforcement here in the city of Portland. And as you can see, my guests here tend to reflect that. And we're just going to have just a candid discussion. They're going to be open to, they've got backgrounds in various areas and whatever, and we're going to have a candid discussion. So the whole purpose to the public, as well as those individuals who are running for office, to give you some ideas of what the issue is here within the city of Portland as it relates to law enforcement, okay? And joining me today, I've got my dear friend Don Dupay. As you notice, Don Dupay's got a jacket on. It's a Navy jacket. He's got his military hat, because he is a veteran in his own right, in aspect of it. That's background stuff, because we are reaching out for the vet. That's the other thing that we're doing, and Don's part of that. And plus the fact he's going to, hopefully, if things work out well, he's going to be the police commissioner on my side of the ring, okay? And then we got Royal. You guys going to say Royal Brown. Royal Harris. Royal has been very, very much involved in community with youth and a number of activities, and just really, really just engaged in many ways on different levels on all subject matters. But this is one area that as far as I'm concerned, he's spent a lot of time in, and we really welcome you on. And it's really a wealth, if you will, of information that he brings to the table, just like I said, the rest of the folks too. And then Teresa Dupay. I mean, she is the principal behind this guy on the other end over there. But anyway, she's written several books, and she's been a very much important part of her husband's book, Behind the Badge in River City, a Portland Police Memoir, which is something that Don put together, which is really great. But Teresa was very instrumental in helping him, editing, and everyone has that, right? That's part of the deal,
Just
right?
about, yeah.
But anyway, and she's written a book. She got her first one, and we've interviewed her on Oregon Voters Digest, and we want to thank her. And she's really a researcher, and I really like that. And she's going to be very instrumental, not only in my campaign, but in all due respect, in getting the issues out to the public, because we got so many people running. I'm sure they're very sincere about what they're wanting to say or whatever. They plucked the money down. They went up there and filed, and that takes a lot of courage to run for office. But the fact of the matter is, the main thing is that we're living in a city. We've got a lot of folks. We've got almost about 700,000 people here within this city, and we got issues across the board. Marijuana has just been signed off, and we got all kinds of things that are happening right now. So it's very important to pay attention. And so one thing that Teresa brings to the table is that she's going to be doing a lot of auditing and that kind of a deal, to kind of get a sense of what are the facts on the books, so that we can either talk about that, change or no change. So with that, folks, you got it. And I'm Bruce Broussard. Like I said, I filed for office, and we're going to naturally want to give everybody equal time along that line, and we're going to be I'm arranging a candidates fair here for the for IPO and cable. It's very important because these are the little people. We're not the establishment. We're not the politios. We're the little people, and they need to know most of them. They're very much important. So with that, I'm just going to open up for discussion. We'll just start off by making the point that we'll introduce Don right off the bat here. He's a former Portland policeman, and he's written this book, Behind the Badge in River City, and a Portland police memoir aspect of it. And he's sort of like, he has the history, you know, he's the background in terms of police work. So Don, what would you tell, let's say, these future candidates who are running for office, and they're running for office right now, how would you educate them about the history? Besides, if you will,
Well,
at least they can read a book or
yeah,
whatever.
I can read a book. Portland police history is very interesting, and my experience with it goes back to 1961, which was a completely different era. It's not so much, this book is not about the current Portland Police Department or any manner of corruption or problems with them. This is a history book, so times are different. Police work basically remains the same, but the technology has changed, so that's the main change in police work is technology. It used to be almost, you know, wire to wire, smoke signals, but nowadays they have all these channels and communications and able to check people's records right from the police car, which is one real good thing for police work. Yeah.
Now tell me this, if there was anything that you think should have been carried forward to today,
Yes.
as opposed to from a historical standpoint, what do
Immediately.
you think should be carried forward that you know, from as far as police work and also from the citizens aspect of it?
Well, you know what I think, Bruce? I think that the first step in community policing, which is a word that's been around ever since I was a 25-year-old cop, so it's not new, is to put the police back into blue uniforms. That's the first thing. You have to make the police look less threatening. We don't want our policemen looking like Gestapo, ninja, bald heads, boots, jumpsuits, all of this black stuff on. That's what makes the problem, creates a lot of the problem. It creates the us, they. They are the intruders, they are the invaders. We need to go back to a simpler uniform. That's the first step in community policing.
Okay, well, we'll
There's
stop.
another step.
No, we had another. Okay, good. You said another step. What's another area you want?
Well, the other step is less and less specialization in the police department. We have way too much specialization.
What do you mean by that?
Well,
Specialization?
not to beat up on the traffic division, but their only purpose is to investigate accidents, which certainly need to be investigated, especially serious ones, and producing revenue. We've got a motorcycle division that has 24 motorcycle officers, and their entire job is to create revenue for the city. That's their only job. You know what? We don't have time for a police department to be so involved in revenue. So what I would do is I would take those motorcycle officers, if you've got 24 of them, that's 12 two-man cars. We put those two-man cars back on the street. Now that doesn't mean that traffic tickets aren't still going to be written. Of course they are. When a policeman sees a traffic violation, he writes a ticket. But that's not his primary job. Revenue and bringing in revenue is not his primary job. So I feel the same way about internal affairs. If you've got a dozen guys working internal affairs, there's 6 more two-man cars. So
Good.
we need to stop specializing.
Okay.
Make policemen again.
Okay.
You do the entire job from writing parking tickets to family beefs to whatever you get involved in, and you do it in a soft, nice blue uniform.
Okay.
They keep talking about the blues. There aren't any more blues. It's all black.
Okay. You know, you've been doing some of the editing on some of the stuff that's been written and whatever. From a historical standpoint,
Yeah.
what did you see that you noticed? Is it maybe anything that you?
Oh, you mean in terms of the Portland,
Yeah, police. Yeah, it's just for
Well, I
police
mean,
work.
the Portland
As far
Police
as
Bureau
bringing
of today
something
has
to date.
changed culturally and socially too. It's definitely not the same police department that it was when Don was a police officer, and it's not just technology that's changed. It's the whole social climate of the city that's changed. It's much more transparent, believe it or not, than it ever was before. It's probably one of the best police departments in the country because so many other police departments are really, really corrupt, but we still have problems. So there's still a lot of room for improvement with Portland Police Bureau, especially hiring more officers of color to police North and Northeast Portland, because policemen should look like the people that they're policing. They shouldn't just be
but
white.
are they allowed to police like any other police?
Sure.
That from your from the standpoint of researching, let's say from a historical standpoint, they did have black officers back during that particular time. But now, what about today? I mean, are they being able to arrest and being looked upon just like any other
Oh,
officer?
sure, I think so. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not like how, I mean, like in Don's book, he talks about the black police officers of the 60s and the 70s, where a lot of them worked the night shift. They were in the jails. They were on the radio dispatch. So there was definitely a lot of stuff that was happening then that's not happening today. But yeah, I mean, I think that they're allowed to be police officers in the same way that any other officer is. But I'm not an expert, so.
Okay. I'm gonna get Royal on this other part, and that's why I'm asking these pieces of something. Now, we still got this affirmative action situation with different types of, i.e. cultural groups, whether it be Asian, and those are the Indian person that's on the department right now. Will they ever be to the point where they can just be officers who happen to be?
Yeah.
I would ask.
Now, let's go, Royal. Let's
I
talk
would
about
ask, well, why would you want that?
Yeah,
I guess to
okay.
me,
Talk to
it's
me.
kind of like saying I'm people who tell the lie. I'm saying I'm colorblind and I don't see color. Well, either you're oblivious to what makes me and the uniqueness that I bring, or you're just a blubbering idiot and you just don't want to acknowledge people. But it really becomes, it's important that you have an Asian officer or an Indian officer, an African American officer for that young kid to see someone who looks like them and specifically speaks to who they are and lets them know that they can aspire to do that. I think, when we look at our city, we're always hoping that the city grows and that it becomes diverse and that we can embrace that. Part of embracing diversity is really embracing that person's individuality, whether it's culturally, whether it's religiously, whether it's how their sexual orientation is. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but you have to acknowledge they're part of what makes Portland Portland. And as we move forward, unless we have the capacity to do that, we lose out on future talent. And I think whether it's in law enforcement or the private sector or social service, the more we lose out on potential talent because they don't see that as a place that they can be, the more we lose the talent that's going to continue to make Portland develop.
You know, the reason why I brought this point on is that we are constantly, well, now we're saying we still have some major problems as far as racism is concerned. And you would think if we're supposed to be a sophisticated society, assimilation should have already been here. But like here, it looked like we're starting all over. I mean, day one. So meaning that from a historical standpoint, when I was growing up, if you will, it was a one-sided situation. But we did do career day back in school and whatever, and people wanted to be officers and whatever. They were limited in terms of some of the things they would do. I didn't know all the parts and whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is that we don't do career day at all. You got me? And you're making the point about we should have, for various cultural groups, they should have someone, like you said, that look like them. Okay, fine.
We have those career days. I think schools and all that have career days, and they do all those traditional things.
Right.
But I think it goes more, kind of what Don was saying, when you see that officer in your neighborhood who looks like you,
Okay.
or when they talk to your parents, you know there's a connection just beyond that.
Okay.
And being able to see it. One of the things I agree with Don is officer friendly.
Yeah.
He had just that regular suit on. He didn't come looking paramilitary.
Well, just the name itself.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to change the name.
and I think also in the sense of an officer, when you think about that old officer, he might have had his gun, but he had the suit. He had versus now when we think of officer, it's that more paramilitary thing. And to what Don said, it's less a member of the community. If that officer in the suit gets out and walks around, that's a different connotation than a guy who looks like he's about ready to bust down the door. And really, but also having kids to see that. Like, I work over at a couple high schools and seeing school resource officers, actual PPD officers, who are black or who are of color or who are women, and allow kids to see someone in that position and look at it as a professional career, not necessarily stigmatizing it as those people. I think that's really important. That's what you say, because as we say, a lot of what we're really talking about is how do we create real pathways for these to be opportunities for our young people in the future. And the first thing you have to do is take down that us and them barrier.
Well, tell me this, Royal. You've been to many meetings, and I know you have, many meetings, and you see a lot of people around the table, from police to people of authority and the whole 9 yards. Are they getting what you're saying? And if they're getting what you're saying, what more do we need to do? And if they're not getting what you're saying, what do we have to do to get them to the table? Again, that's one of the reasons why we're doing this.
I would say a lot of people get it. A lot of people intrinsically feel it. But to make that shift requires you have to give up something. And for a lot of people, whether it's status, position, the status quo, the comfort of what I'm comfortable with, paradigm shift can be scary. And you know, with law enforcement, one of the challenges working with law enforcement in this modern time is they have gone to more a social service model, in the sense that they, like I think what Don has talked about before, is doing things that aren't inherently law enforcement. Law enforcement's two roles are to catch people and to make sure people are safe. And that's what they do really well. Being a social service agency, being a resource generator, being a mediator, those aren't really law enforcement tasks. Now the difficulty comes is once law enforcement has allocated money for that and it's in the budget, how do they let go of something they're not really good at, but the money is something we really need?
Right.
You know, how does public health wrestle violence away from law enforcement? How do we really let mental health drivers and mental health practitioners be the driver of engagement? How does law enforcement give up that money? Or just importantly, all those ancillary groups who contract with law enforcement and do kind of a semi-okay job and maintain the status quo versus really pushing the envelope towards change, do they capitulate and say, well, this isn't really effective? Or do they call these entities out and risk losing their own money? So a lot of it has to do with what are people willing to give up for a different city, for a different paradigm on how we address things, you know.
So how are they responding to that? I mean, that's what I'm still asking that question. And
guess-
sitting in these meetings, I know you made the statement to them. How did they respond to you? Did the mayor interact with that situation?
I guess I wouldn't.
The chief?
I guess I wouldn't put it on any one individual, because here's the deal. Charlie's gonna be gone in a year.
Yep.
Sam was gone. Vera was gone. So these individual people who play a position aren't really big as these institutions. You know, the police department is going to be there far longer than any one individual. So to think that, it's kind of always, one of the examples I use is this. If you're out in the Indian Ocean, it's a lot easier to turn a jet ski than the USS George Bush. And there are quite a few people in that process who have to agree with your navigation choices, or they can just say no. Therein lies with big entities of government the same kind of process. A lot of people are around a lot longer than politicians, and their salaries are more interest than creating a new paradigm that challenges their status quo. It doesn't mean that people aren't well-intentioned. And also, one of the things that happens is we, as Portland, in my opinion, we sometimes suffer from this inferiority complex. Kind of like we feel like we're the stepchild of Seattle or San Francisco or Oakland. And we have to go looking somewhere else for ideas on how to innovate, when a lot of the same creative forces are here. We just go spend money in other places. And when it comes to solving a lot of our social problems, whether it's law enforcement, public health, we go spend money other places and bypass all the richness of the ideas here that could also be incubators for industry and more things here. So, you know, it's really taking advantage of Portland.
But you were talking about were people listening, you know, and I just think of it like this: actions speak louder than words. And I remember when the Regional Arts Council, they had Wheeler and Bailey. You know, I mean, that's what they had for their presentation. They didn't include Fred Stewart. They didn't include Chloe Udele. They didn't include the other people that were running for seat 4. Or, I mean, to me, I was so incensed when I read about that, because it was so elitist and exclusionary. That showed me what those kinds of entities really value. I was so upset.
And
when
where
that
was the
happened.
moderator when they were doing this?
I don't remember. I just know that they didn't include all of the candidates.
Didn't
They
include-
included. They had Ted Wheeler and they had Jules Bailey.
And
that was it.
That was it. Well, let me throw something on the table and kind of responding to what some of the things you're saying, and then Royal too at the same time, and even Don in many ways. A thought that has come to mind is that like you were saying, that the mayors leave, every these people leave, and then the same structure of the police department is still there, aspect of it. What say if the mayor has, say, 4 years aspect of it, and then all of a sudden then the incumbency come, whether they run again or they don't. The media would interview that mayor and talk about and ask him questions about what you had this agenda when you walked in, and these are the things you said you were going to do, and you got 10 items up there and you got 2 left. Talk about, okay, this is what we've done up to this point in time. We got these things of concern, or we got some additional aspect of it. And then the idea is that after they've interviewed that, then they promote that throughout the community, throughout everybody for that matter. Then if a person wants to run for office, at least they have some ideas in terms of, do I have a solution to that problem? Can I be a better person to better our way of life? And so then when a person goes and files to run for office, they would then have to lay out, this is the issue that I'm going to be running on, and this is how I'm going to respond to this issue, and that kind of a deal. What do you think about that? I'm just throwing it on the table. Any response? Talk to me. Can we educate? I'm just trying to think about what you were saying about people leave office, and it's a fact. You don't have no ideas. You don't get called in. In fact, I just filed. I just filed. It cost me $50, and all they had to do was put my name down. And people don't know what, I don't have my background or nothing. They just, there it is.
So do you think they should revise the policies?
Really, that's something that in all due respect, if I get there, I'm going to definitely look at.
I guess my challenge to that would be, in a free and democratic society, why would you want to create barriers for people to participate?
Well, but then I'm saying to you.
Now, because on the other side, I could always say this.
Okay.
If you have the $50 to cast your name into the lot,
right,
then it's incumbent upon you or that individual to have the resources to spread out, to articulate your message. Now, there should be just fair and reasonable procedural pathways for that to happen, but at the same time, if it were a grassroots movement, it would still be the same thing. It would still be that 50. You would just have to find the capacity to share that message. And I think for a lot of people, they have a great idea. They might want to be mayor, but what separates contenders from pretenders is the ability to generate support and revenue to pass on their message.
But where's the issue? See, the key is that the issue is the key. It's not the individual. It's the issue. Someone has to identify the issue of concern. That's what you should be running on, not, quote, the money, whatever. You may not have any money, but if you got some ideas, I like it. Now we're getting there.
The issue goes by the wayside because the mayor comes and goes, the mayor comes and goes, the commissioners come and go, but the civil service people are still there. The people that run the ship, the people that steer the boat, they're still there. The mayor has a staff. He's always going to have a staff. It may be probably even some of the same staff. So you have to keep reinventing these. We need to do this now. Every candidate that comes in says, we need to reinvent this, or we need to redo this, or we need to restudy this. Because when Vera was gone, a lot of her ideas went with her. And so,
but why not interview her? Find out what the...
Now you're in. Your ideas are going to be. It's up to you to say, well, this is what I want to do now because too much of this has gone by the wayside.
No, but what I want to do is that I'd like to at least have some idea of the issues that were first brought on by Vera. Give an update, and then if I feel maybe the idea I might want to run on, say, hey, look, it's already been taken care of, I wouldn't run.
I guess it will become, in metro area of Portland, about, like you say, we're about 700,000 people. Now, for one person to say, what the previous person ran on and this is my extension of that might not be reflected. It could be that person came with a platform before an economic downturn. It could be an influx in population. It could be those things. And also, when you really look at mayor, it's kind of like a popularity contest. Can you make me feel that you'll make me feel good for the next 4 years? Not necessarily do you put in a substantive structural change. Like what best example. There are so many people mad because they hold Charlie Hales accountable for the housing crisis in Portland. Never do they look at the fact that you have so many owners of property who are gorging people. Never do they look at the personal responsibility of property owners in doing these things. Nor do they just look at the fact that Charlie Hales legally can't go to somebody and say, I can tell you what to do with your property.
Can't do it.
These are all things that will change through policy, through legislation, through the use of a bully pulpit to hold these entities accountable. It won't be because this guy said he can fix so much and manage us for 4 years. And I think as an electorate, talking about the consensus of people who live in Multnomah County, it's not incumbent on that person to prove to you he's not a fool. It's incumbent on you to do your research to know whether or not he looks like a fool when he's coming.
Well, again, that's what we're talking about. You know, the fact of the matter is, we got issues. And the key is that how do you get folks to come to the table to say, hey, we are going to have to change policy? I mean, it's a tough
Are you talking
job.
about those looking for a position, or are you talking about just the general electorate?
No, the issue, yeah, because it's supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
So
That's the whole
many
idea.
people just don't care.
Well, yeah, I know, but how do we get to the point that we can get the kind of leadership that will deal with policy that talks about the issues that we have, just like he was saying about the housing thing. It is a major issue. I mean, here we got Charlie. Remember you just met Charlie. What happened to the other 4 commissioners? See, that's the other problem about this city. We don't know who our commissioners are.
But and I guess here's my thing: they have their own cable TV, they're on the news all the time, and technically you can go to the website. So it goes to this: you can only be an A student if you do enough research and due diligence to produce a product. And if people want government presented to them and given to them, it's kind of like the kid who wants an A, but he just shows up and sits in the chair and does no
But they
work.
don't run. All right. That's the
You
problem.
know, so
They don't
for
run.
us,
They
so
don't
for
run.
us, like I say, for us, the accountability and I guess a better way to say it is this: if you want quality candidates for positions,
Right, go on.
you have to hold the electorate accountable, because it is incumbent on each person to have that knowledge. Now, the question for me is, going back to your question more so, of how do we create that?
Yeah.
You wipe out certain generations and realize if at a certain age, they're not going to change. And really, it's about how do we produce future generations? Because at a certain point, the question is, do we kind of bemoan the fact that we as adults have blown it? Or do we create an institution that through our young people being educated and an informed electorate, they don't have to repeat the cycle? And that's really it. Because adults, we're on the way out. So it might as well make sure those people who are here actually have something worth doing and understand how to survive the processes that we didn't fully appreciate.
Well, we did have an education system at one point in time that did sort of help that out. But now I question the education system. And we got the young folks who have all this energy, but guess what? They don't have the tools.
A lot of
A
times.
lot
they
of them
don't.
don't have the tools.
Yeah.
So how do we go about doing that? So that means that, in all due respect, the folk with the history needs to recognize it to make sure that they keep those vehicles in place, if you will, so that folks can come in a transition way. And you're right. We got like I could say point blank, I would say about maybe 50, 60% of the people who are running for mayor today have no idea. It's just that there's a frustration. There's a frustration. But is that the right posture to make that particular seat?
That's what
available?
makes people move is anger. So there's a lot of people mad, so that's why they're running for
Yeah,
mayor. I'm
that's
going
right.
to change it.
Yeah,
damn it.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Some way, shape, or form, we need to identify the issues. At least there's all sorts of issues, right? There might be 50, but if we can prioritize them 1 through 50 and say, okay, fine, we're gonna take the prioritization and take maybe the first 4. That hopefully includes a lot of the folks that people are recognized aspect of it, and deal with those 5.
Yeah.
Then you've got these other issues. Then as time goes, you can maybe you've done those and you come up with something else.
It seems like one of the most important issues right now is homelessness and housing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, I don't even recognize this city anymore.
Right.
It's not the Portland I grew up in.
But before we get in that, we're going to come back on that one. But I want to get back on the police piece for a minute. There's another piece I'm going to throw out on the table. There's sort of a recognition that police runs the city. How do we get that mindset together? You know, like they're in charge. They run the city of Portland.
Because
I'm gonna throw that out to you.
Because it's true.
It is true.
It is pretty much true.
Why is that so?
Well,
and
because
what-
the last election with Charlie Hales, he was in my opinion, intimidated by the police union. Some things that he could have asked for that they give up, like the 48-hour "I'm not going to talk to you" rule. He didn't even ask them to do that. So it's more important for him to have the police support than it is to do the right thing, and that's always the problem. And Royal is right about we need to stop worrying about the old people who are like us who are going to be gone anyhow and start talking to the younger people. We need to recruit the younger policemen because these old cops are going to be gone, and a lot of them this coming year.
But somebody's got to train them.
Somebody's got to train them.
Who's they going to listen to?
This is the problem with police culture.
Talk to me.
The problem with police culture in the last 35 years is that police in Portland have gone from blue-collar working class to middle class and upper class. And I've talked to a retired sergeant who I won't name, and he told me, we talked about this for a long time. There's a little cafe, John's Cafe. It's right below the Golden West Hotel. And they've run that hotel for 43 years, or the cafe, for 43 years. And I was talking to her about a month ago, and she said, you know, the cops that worked in the 70s, the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, they were nice. They would come in, they would come here, they would have their breakfast, they were nice, they talked to us. Now the cops, and she did this with her, you know, she's a Greek woman and she has a wonderful accent. She did this to indicate that they're snobby. And that's the problem. I mean, it's like there aren't as many blue collar working class police officers in Portland, and there's the process of hiring police officers is so stringent, it's so difficult that they don't accept really probably good candidates. And so and that's why there's this deficiency because it's just impossible to be accepted. And I've talked to cops in Beaverton and Hillsborough that applied with PPB and were turned down. One of them because he had a little bit of a credit problem. They want perfection, and they're not going to find it. And that's one of the problems.
You can't recruit virgins.
Yeah.
You know,
They want virgins.
You've got to go to the younger people. We need to recruit in the schools. We need to take all the black officers and go to the school, come and look like us, all the short policemen, all the tall policemen, all the gay policemen. Go to the schools that way. This is us.
Yeah.
We are you. You are us. Join us.
And the thing is, we don't need to look out of state. There's a lot of talent right here in Portland. We don't need to go out of state and get out of state bad apples that somebody wants to transfer.
You heard these discussions in these. You hear us talking about this. I'm sure you heard these discussions in some of the meetings that you've gone to. What do they think about this whole issue that that the police force runs the city?
I mean,
Have they ever had that discussion?
I mean, nobody's just gonna blatantly say the police department runs the city.
Come on, Aaron. Come on, Ron. Well, how do they do
Wait.
it?
It's a
Come on,
difference
now.
between
Come on, now.
blatantly saying it and actually understanding and growing up in Portland and understanding who are the people that have the most influence on how things work. And I guess to a certain degree, I can't really say it's a bad thing because it's about politics. It's not necessary, and I think to a certain degree, there's a political aspect to law enforcement, and there's a service delivery aspect to law enforcement. And the thing is, for the average person, we don't separate them because they drive two different things. The average person is gonna see their neighborhood cop. You're not gonna know who the power players in law enforcement are downtown, and what they're looking at, and what their budgets are, and how, or the policemen's union, and how they're mandated to look out for the 897 Portland police officers to get them the best deal, the best pension, the best protection, the best coverage for their people. And within all that, also have influence on how the city runs, because, like it or not, if violence spikes, the police are going to be to blame. It could be rational, it could be irrational, but that's the perception. So if they're going to take all those hits, they're going to actually want all the rewards and all the perks to insulate themselves with it.
You didn't mention the mayor, or you didn't mention the police commissioner. You basically said,
well,
you're going to blame the police. What happened to the commanding general?
Well, he's accountable. But again, police commissioner is more of a political office than it is an operational day-to-day officer.
But not in charge.
It shouldn't be.
And it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
He's the CEO of the police
That's
department.
right. He needs to be damn well involved.
Yeah.
Okay, who is that? The mayor?
The mayor, the police
Well, whoever the commissioner
needs
is,
to
right?
be involved.
Be
because
involved, right, right. They need to be in charge.
he needs to be
The buck
involved.
stops there, right?
That's right. I've always said if you don't like the way your police department works, fire the mayor.
So let me ask you this
'Cause I work
question,
for him.
because here's a question I have. So say like right now, Charlie Hales is the police commissioner.
Right.
He's the top of the rung
That's his
for
bureau,
police, right?
Right.
So here's my question. What qualified him, other than being a mayor and that being in his portfolio, to be the CEO of a 100-year-old, multi-layered, multi-$100 million organization and learn it on the fly and
Right.
make all those decisions
Yeah.
knowing you only have a finite amount of time with the job?
The answer is simple. He doesn't.
So that was
He
going to.
doesn't.
So do you think that it should be an independent police person or somebody who can devote more time to it versus putting it just as a portfolio thing to kind of oversee?
Well, let me throw this in before he ends his speech. Well, first off, we're both from the military, so to speak. And in all due respect, the police force is a paramilitary kind of a deal.
Oh, most
And it's
definitely.
a structure, in all due respect. And when a new CO comes to the base, it's not expected of him to know every intricacy or whatever. There's a structure. Everybody knows this, and he's got various entities. You know, you got the ranks, and you got all this, that, and the other, and it just flows down the deal aspect of it. So it's not a situation where the CO has to know everything.
But I would say the difference here is because it is paramilitary.
Yeah.
There's more politics
Sure.
and
I
public persuasion involved than just rank and file order and follow the system.
True.
So and there's that elaborate dance. And I say as a citizen, not that I think the police is the greatest institution in Portland, but I do understand for their continuity, because I think sometimes there are certain things that have to do with law enforcement and we get constraints in the relationship because a mayor is thinking what's popular for my position
Sure.
and my administration,
Right.
when law enforcement is thinking what's most valuable to us on this longitudinal base of saying over the next 5-10 years, and this guy or gal won't be here then.
Well, you know, again, folks, we're talking about, but those individuals who are, well, two individuals. We're talking about the public, who tends to the butt end of this whole issue of law enforcement, and we're talking about the individual who's going to be in charge, and so that's what we're talking about, folks. And for those of you who are running for office here, let's say the city of Portland, whether it be mayor or a commissioner, that's a heck of a responsibility. And here we are talking about this thing in an open view aspect of it, and it shouldn't be taken lightly, you know, because in all due respect, if in fact you're elected, they'll give you the file and say, here, this is what you have to follow. And it's not that easy, if you will. You got me?
I'm thinking about what you said. I know one police captain who's no longer here who turned down the job as the chief of police because he didn't think the mayor
Right.
was qualified to be the boss. So
Yeah.
he didn't want any part of it.
Right. Leo.
And that was probably a wise decision on his part because exactly what you said. The mayor was not qualified to be in charge of the police department. You're part figurehead, part responsible. It's kind of a tough.
There's a real disconnect between police officers and sergeants and captains and lieutenants wanting to be governed by a person who has no experience in law enforcement. They resent it tremendously. Don's referring to Leo Miller. He was the man that ended up committing suicide, and he could have been the chief of police back in the 70s. He chose not to because he didn't want to be told what to do by Neil Goldschmidt, who didn't have a background in law enforcement. So that's another aspect of police culture that's really problematic. Police don't like being told what to do because police work is it's police science too. You know, I mean, it's never straightforward. It's never simple. It's really complex, and so police tend to know what works and what doesn't work on a good day, and they resent people who don't have any background in law enforcement.
And then we're talking about young folks today. Well, in many ways, in all due respect, you know, the whole issue of the family and this, that, and the other, that mindset's not there. You know, that's another major problem. You know what I mean? And they didn't get the training, they didn't get the education, if you will. And then you got, as you say, you've got folks who are going to school day in and day out, picking up degrees and no jobs.
Yeah.
You got me? And you got to eat. And so consequently, you say, well, gee whiz, I can go over here and apply for the department over here. You got me? And get the job because I've got that entree. I got my degree and have no background whatsoever dealing in the social entity of the people, especially those areas where they feel that's what they've identified with.
Yeah.
The poor area aspect of it. And so I would agree with you that that's one of the reasons why I'm suggesting that we need to change, if you will, that so-called filing system when you're running for office to a certain degree. Come up with the background, an extensive background.
I guess my question would be, here's my caveat at that. What would you say are the requisite skills to be a mayor? Because if it's a degree, there are a lot of people who don't have degrees who are highly intelligent. Or I know some people that have multiple degrees that are done.
I agree. I'm agreeing with that.
So I guess again it goes to.
We got about another. We're gonna do. How much time we have?
Yeah, it goes to. Are you bringing in somebody who has a vision of where Portland should be, and the requisite skill thing should be is the competencies needed to not only do the job but to surround yourself with talented people. I think more importantly than just saying, okay, what you get to and again, we have 16 people running for mayor. Competency, message, popularity, and finance are going to wash out everybody except for one. And the reality
Not necessarily.
And the reality is this.
You can't say that from the forms that I've seen.
No, here's what I would say. But listen what I'm saying.
Go on.
Whether it's they're competent enough, they're persuasive enough, they have enough money, or enough opportunity to get their message out. Out of those four, if you use those 4 channels, at the end of the day, only one person's going to be left. And with that, the thing that has the society that our community has accepted is, if you do participate, make sure the most competent person that gets the job. If you don't participate, you have no say. And if you kind of sit on the sideline, somebody else is going to make your decision for you. And at this point, like we say, the question really is, do we make, with all the challenges, housing, education, access, are we really, Portland is going to become another major Pacific Rim mini megalopolis. It's going to happen. The question becomes, how do we move forward with that? Are we going to bemoan the housing prices, or do we really do things to stimulate manufacturing and high-end technology jobs in this area? We are really globally an innovator in the tennis shoe industry. With all these people coming in with all these talents, are we cultivating that? Or to a degree, are we just going to have to accept we're going to have 2 Portlands, and how do we make both of those Portlands healthy?
Well, the majority of the people that are going to be here don't have the money. And you got to relate to them, because otherwise, who's paying the taxes? And then you got the people with the money who are going to hire themselves with the money because they're thinking about themselves. I mean, that's just the way it is to a certain degree. So that's why I'm saying I think it's very important to attach a resume to folks who run to get some sense of background. And are you people oriented? You know, that's why I'm saying take the money out, because the person who may file may have the solution. May not have the money, so let them file. You know what I'm saying? And then you can whatever.
I know what you're getting at, and a really good example of it is this group that was formed about a year ago, that review, and we applied. Don and I applied. It was a citizen review.
Citizen Review Board.
And we applied, and we were both really good candidates. They chose a lot of really interesting, colorful people that were probably not the best suited. And then about 6 or 8 months into it, several of them left, and it kind of collapsed. And then they contacted both of us and asked us if we wanted to be on it again. And we were busy, and we were publishing his book, and we were like, well, I'm really sorry, we can't do that. So I think that it's a lot like what Royal says. It is a popularity contest.
It is. We got to take that out, though. That's the problem.
Here's the deal.
How do you do it?
You don't. That's in the fabric of America. It's in the fabric of the state of Oregon. It's in the fabric of our political process. It's a popularity contest. What happens is you're only getting that popularity contest from a segment. So it's not necessarily you remove that, you increase the pie. Create a bigger pie so the popularity, other people have an opportunity to take advantage.
I'm agreeing with you, but the dollar's still going to overcome the popularity. The popularity is the money. And that's what we're trying to get the money across. Because in all due respect, I'm not a popular guy. But I will match my resume with anybody that is running. They couldn't compete. But the fact of the matter is the money deal. It should not be about the money. It should be about the issue.
Yeah.
And I'm agreeing with you, but it's got to be about the issue.
Yeah.
And those individuals kind of have to say, that's why I'm saying, put the issues on the table. Put
But
the
I
issues
guess-
on the table.
That's going to require one person to say these are the issues. Because again, I guess I say like this.
No, I want
For
everybody-
16,
I want
for
everybody to put the
16
issues
people,
down.
you're going to have a whole pie of issues.
No, but this
With
one-
that said,
I'm agreeing with you, but put them down on paper when you file.
why? I guess my question would be,
Then
why
you're
do I
gonna
have to? Why do I have to tip my hand now?
Tip your hand now.
It's an election contest.
No, I don't want you tipping. I don't want you to give me your issue, because if you're not issue oriented, you can't run.
You see, that again. We've had this process all this time. It would be cool, but the little guy has to realize you got to play by the rules. And sometimes, again,
I'm a little guy.
I guess here's one thing I always say. I'd look at it like this. Sometimes people will complain about a $10 steak more than they will think about how to get $15.
Yeah, you're right.
That's a little deep right now for me. I'm so issue. How do we get the steaks? But I don't even eat steaks now.
What I mean by that is we'll think about how much the deficit is without thinking about how do I creatively address the deficit and overcome it.
Okay.
Right, the
okay.
negative instead of the positive. Yeah, I get
Well,
it.
I tell you what, Richard's got an announcement he wants to make. We're going to take a short break. We're going to take a short break, and he wants to make sure that he get this announcement in. Let's do that, okay?
Sounds good.
But this has been good. We're going to continue on. But the whole idea, folks, I just want to let you know that it's a very important election at this point in time. If in fact we want to maintain the City of Roses, we're going to have to work for it, because we caught them in two different areas. We got Washington on one side, we got California on the other side, and we're sitting down in the middle, and we've been living pretty good. And things are going to change if we don't get the right leadership. Fair,
Yeah.
okay? We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Hello. Apparently, the Portland Tribune, of which everybody can get a copy of,
Right.
has in the back of this business section has a schedule for the city council.
Did you get those, Rich? There you
There.
go.
Well,
got
there's
it,
public
okay,
notices too.
okay.
But public
This thing's
notices.
crazy. There we go.
Okay, and it's a whole double page of the agenda
Wow.
for the city council
Is that for a week, a month, or what? What's the
for
deal?
the next day.
For the next day?
Yeah, for the next day.
Wow.
Like there's here 4 people that want to talk
Hmm.
before the meeting. Request of Sharon Nassett to address councils regarding homelessness.
Hmm.
So there's a little bit of everything. Mayor Charlie Hales, Nick Fish, Charlie Hales back on.
Is this a
Steve
first?
Novick.
Is this a first? They're going to be doing this now on a continuing basis?
This is the second week I've seen this schedule
Second week inside the Tribune.
inside the back.
So
of
they
the
are going to be
Tribune.
carrying it once in a
Yeah,
while. Because
that's
they
right.
meet once every Wednesday, right? Every Wednesday.
This, if you pick up the paper on
Right.
Tuesday, then you got the schedule for
The
the
entire
next
schedule.
day.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That is
So
awesome.
It's
folks.
very current.
That is
might
awesome.
say.
Boy,
So,
wow,
it's-
that is great news. Because
Yeah,
the only
yeah.
problem I have with it, Richard, is that they meet during the week. People
They
are
do.
working.
That's right. That's right.
People are working. Why can't they do it on weekends?
Okay. Well,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
We'll work on that.
Have the schedule.
Yeah,
Right.
we'll
yeah.
work on that. But the idea is that it's a good system. I've been before that body before.
Oh yes.
But
and
again, it's during the week.
and then I find out how long you can wait before
Exactly.
they get through with
Ex-
everything else
exactly.
before they can get to
And
you.
you only have 2 minutes. Now, how can you talk in 2 minutes? Can you talk in 2 minutes?
no.
And brought up an issue?
Well, if you had something really but you wouldn't get any feedback. You wouldn't find out what's going to happen on it.
Yes, and most people are nervous, you know. They
I've
don't
always
speak to
wondered
the
what
public.
time certain.
Yeah,
meant.
yeah, just
I-
2 minutes. By the time
Okay.
you sit down and if you're nervous, if you're new, if you haven't done this kind of stuff that we've
Right.
done, right? You know, by the time you get to the point and say, well, this is my deal, next,
Right.
and then they get upset, right?
That's probably
They
right.
get very upset. so
Okay, well,
it's very
we wanna-
important. Okay, good.
Thank you for watching, and want to thank our crew, and don't forget to pick up your Portland
Tribune, yes, please pick it up. And we'll work
It's
on
the
that, right?
Tuesday issue. That's
It's a
right.
Tuesday issue for Wednesday. Yeah,
For Wednesday.
right,
Right.
for Wednesday.
right.
Okay, good.
I'm surprised to find that that's the way it works.
Good deal. They're going to do this every week. That's going to be great. That's going to be just great.
Yeah.
But I prefer it being on weekends, Saturdays.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Maybe we'll get the note out there for them for that. 'Cause that's a very important piece. That's the
Right.
first time I've seen that.
Right.
They're becoming the major newspaper. The Oregonian's kind of like going behind them, and it's free.
And yes, and this
It's
comes
free.
out like on Thursday when the Oregonian is not delivered.
That's right, and it's free.